Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kinesiology 2030 Lecture 3 New Thinking on Health. Now, this is actually a new concept for me because this is something that I have sat down and really thought about over the last little bit. And I decided to create this lecture and this new thinking on health so we can have a better understanding on how to improve health in a simplistic manner. Because I think right now what's happening is a lot of people struggle to improve their health because it's overwhelming. If you really look at all the dimensions of health, it can be a daunting task to sit down and try and improve every single one of those aspects. If we look at the 8 dimensions of wellness that we've already talked about, right there, those are 8 different areas of health that you need to improve in order to become a better person. Now, I think that is very overwhelming for some people. And then what happens is they start picking and choosing what they think is important, which is fine, but then they might lose sight of some other aspects that are actually important. So I decided to sit down and really ask myself, what would be the best way for people to improve their health? And the first thing that came to my mind was simplicity. Because if you want to really improve your health, simplicity is the way to go. Because if you want to look at the various ways to improve health right now, it's difficult because you have multiple textbooks, multiple books, multiple podcasts, multiple websites, multiple people telling you what to do. We have all this information to health. And what we need to be able to do is decipher which of that information is going to be relevant to us and our health journey. And I think that is really, when it comes to health, the most important thing to think about is, this is my journey. What am I going to do to make my journey successful? Because when we look at all the various stats on people trying to increase physical activity or people trying to improve their nutrition, one of the most glaring stats that we always see is the failure rate. The failure rate is high anytime someone starts a new exercise program. I've seen surveys that show that 75% of people quit within the first 6 weeks of a new training program. I've I've read tons of research that shows that everyone a high percentage of people that lose 10 pounds gain it back 4 months later. So anytime you look at the information, you look at the research, one of the, like I said, the most common themes is failure. And the reason that is because change is hard. Change is difficult. We are creatures of habit. We are creatures who, through evolution, want to really do as little as possible because we want to conserve the energy that we have. Because our ancestors needed to conserve energy because they didn't know when the next bout of energy was coming in terms of food. So the body has evolved over the years to conserve energy. That's why we store fat and turn carbohydrates into fat, because we want to store all this energy. So really, when we think about trying to improve ourselves in today's tech world, in today's modern society where really physical activity and health is not conducive, we need to figure out how we're going to go against the evolutionary aspect of being comfortable and push ourselves out of that to become uncomfortable to get better. Because I can tell you one thing, getting better at something is uncomfortable. And it's one reason why I put that little movement challenge onto the discussion board for this semester, trying to get you guys to do a squat, introducing different mobility exercises each week to help you with that squat. So you can see that, you know what, if you can't do something, you have to get uncomfortable in order to be able to do it. And that's what progress in health is. That's what progress in physical health, physical activity is. That's what progress in nutrition is. It's getting out of your comfort zone, pushing yourself beyond what you're used to, and improving yourself. Now, for a lot of people, that is hard, and I understand why. And it's overwhelming And again, I understand why. Because all these people are telling you, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. Wellness dimension, 8 steps. This is what you need to do to become healthy. That's a lot. It's a lot to think about, it's a lot to do. And you know what? We have a lot on our plates already as it is, in terms of trying to make money, trying to work, trying to be with our family, whatever it is. We have so many different priorities flying around. Sometimes health goes to the bottom of that priority list. So my new thinking of health is to try and take back health yourself, make it a priority by incorporating it into everyday life. So that's what the new thinking of health is. That's what this lecture is about. And I'm going to go over what I believe are the most important concepts of health and why I created this aspect so we can simplify life. So the first thing we want to look at is just a couple introduction aspect. All right, so what we're going to be talking about is really an intro to this new thinking of health. We're going to talk about what I call the pyramid of health, and then we're going to go over each aspect of the pyramid of health. And then I'm going to start talking a little bit about some other points of health that we need to consider. And one of my, in creating this aspect of the new thinking of health, is I'm really pushing people to think differently. I really want to push people to think about the studies that come in. I want to push people to think about even my lectures that I'm giving you, right? We want to make sure that when we are going through health and we're going through new research, textbooks, lectures, podcasts, we really take a look at, okay, what's this person trying to say? Why are they trying to say it? And how it's going to help me? And that's what this lecture is about. It's creating those questions and figuring out, how is this going to help me? All right. So first thing we need to look at is, what's the problem in health? What's the solution? What are some awareness aspects? And what are the tools that we can have? So the first thing to look at is the problem. Right now, we are currently living through a health crisis that is approaching a breaking point. That's why I think this class is one of the most important classes in our kinesiology stream, because it looks at the health crisis. It looks at what's happening. It's looking at how our society is going into this non-moving, sitting all day, obese society that is really putting a strain on our healthcare system and also putting a strain on us as individuals. So when we look at that current system, we know that, well, it is well-intentioned, but really it's primarily applies a palliative approach. So really what this current system is trying to do when it comes to healthcare or health system is we're trying to manage disease while really disregarding what the root cause of the problem is. And I think that's what we need to look at more, is instead of, just focusing on managing the disease, come up with the root problem is, right? So if you look at some of the basic diseases of civilization, like cardiac disease, right? Like, we know that we can control things like high cholesterol through our bloodstream with medication. All right. So a lot of people, that's what they do. They just take the medication and that's fine. They don't look at the root cause. Well, what's causing the heart disease? What's causing the high cholesterol? And those are questions we need to ask. All right. Another thing we need to understand is the financial incentives are not aligned with health outcomes and health education. So really the focus needs to be on prevention instead of symptom management. Now, this has to be one of the main solutions, I believe, is prevention. And you've probably all heard the term prevention is the best medicine. And it really is. If we can prevent certain problems, that is going to help our entire society, and that's going to help ourselves. So it comes down to, what's the solution? Well, the solution is is going to be empowering an individual to take ownership of their health through optimal lifestyle choices. And that's something we're going to be talking a lot about is lifestyle, because lifestyle is really the way to improve yourself. And we looked at that, what we looked at lifestyle and environment being really the majority of health conditions or improved health. So it comes down to empowering someone. And that's why I think this new thinking of health needs to start with the individual. Get the individual to take ownership for themselves. Now, in order to do that, we have to deliver information that is first easily understandable, obviously make it specific with health, and then that will help people make good decisions to hopefully prevent issues that might develop in the first place. So the first thing, as I said, make health simple, right? That's the first thing we need to do. Another thing we need to do is we need to provide open source access to quality education. We need this type of information to get out to the public. We need them to be able to understand, because what I know and what I've learned is not everyone has that information, not everyone has that education, and they need help and they need to know where to go. So we need sources of quality education. As health professionals and as future health professionals, you need to be able to offer one-on-one help and accountability for the community. So we need educated individuals that can translate the science that we know into actionable changes that everyone can understand and that everyone can really improve on, and really focus on the environmental aspect and the behavioral aspect of their health. Now, before any individual can take responsibility from a problem, they first must acquire a few basic elements so they're able to respond effectively to the situation. So we need awareness. So before we can solve any problem, we must know first, a problem actually exists, and second, what the root cause of that problem is. So as individuals who are leading others, we need that awareness of ourselves so we understand how awareness can make a change. And then we need to figure out how to deliver this awareness to others. Now, this is one of the most difficult aspects because this is going to lead to uncomfortable conversations. Because you're going to have to tell people, look, the reason you have this problem is because of what you're doing in your life. The reason why you have bad knees is because you have too much weight on your upper body, right? It's going to result in uncomfortable conversations, and you have to be okay with having those uncomfortable conversations. And as health professionals, you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to tell someone what the problem is because they don't know, right? That's the first thing you need to understand is they don't know. They don't know why they got that way, and they don't know how to get better. Now, I want to give you an example of this awareness. So one thing that I really look at is in my strength and conditioning profession is a lot of problems movement-wise that people have actually come from foot dysfunction. So most people that have foot dysfunction really have no aware that the problem exists. And they don't really know there's a problem until pain begins. Now, that's sometimes a very delayed piece of feedback because often when pain starts, it's too late. That like the pain is the pain is there because of years or months of neglect. So what we need to do is figure out, well, what's causing the pain? What's causing the problem? Right? Now, a lot of people, when it comes to foot dysfunction, the problem is, and they're not being told this, is their shoe is probably causing the problem. If you're wearing an elevated shoe with a narrow toe box, chances are you're creating a dysfunction in your feet because you're actually changing the load profile of what the foot naturally wants, right? So the more awareness you have of every single aspect of the body, the easier it is to find out what the root cause of the problem is. All right? This type of information, the mechanics of the body and improving your body, that goes into my strength and conditioning course 3303. We talk about that in more detail. This is more about the health aspect, but I like giving that example because I guarantee the majority of you are listening to this probably wear shoes all the time and probably have some form of foot dysfunction. I always ask this question: have you ever been told you need orthotics? If you've told you need orthotics, you have foot dysfunction. And I'm not going to get into that right now because I'll go on forever about it. But anyways, that's just an example of awareness and how you need to help people be aware of problems and what the root cause of the problem is. Because the more you get people to realize that and they become aware of it, the easier it is to help them solve those problems. Then we need tools. All right? We need to provide tools to help resolve the problem. So once we realize that the problem exists and we know the root cause of it, then we need some basic tools that can be applied to help resolve the problems. So this can be simple as a mobility exercise to get a stiff joint moving, or a basic understanding how you can engineer your home environment to promote movement to help remove the convenience of sedentary behaviors. All right, so that's the core part of the new thinking of health and how we can change people and help them, empower them, and help them learn and help them understand the root problem versus just, you have this pain, well, take this and it will help a little bit, right? Oh, your foot is sore, change your shoe and it should make it better. Oh, your foot sore, wear this orthotic and it will help decrease the pain, right? That's pain management, but we got to be better than pain management. We got to correct. All right, we got to correct the problem the best way we can. Now this leads me into my pyramid of health. And why I created the pyramid of health is really to simplify the dimensions of wellness. As I said, over the years, I've taught the dimensions of wellness for 15 years, and I feel like they're getting a little bit overcomplicated, a little bit stale, and that's just my opinion, right? I teach the dimensions of wellness because I think they're important. I think that you need to understand them because maybe you want to adopt them into your philosophy, which is fine because that's how you develop your philosophy. You find out all these different areas of understanding, and as long as they're scientific and there's some sort of evidence behind them, then they're not wrong. And you build your philosophy from there. So if you believe the 8 dimensions of wellness will help your health or help someone you're working with health, that is awesome. You should run with it. All right? I ran with it for 15 years, but now I want to change because I want to simplify. And so I'm simplifying it with this pyramid of health. Now, the reason why I use a pyramid is essentially because I love the pyramid analogy. The bigger the base, the stronger the structure. And I think that is so important with the body, right? I use an athlete's pyramid, where if you have great physical capacity, it's going to lead to greater performance. And it's the same thing with health, all right? The base is going to help improve all aspects of health. And for me, the base of the pyramid should be sleep. I think that is the base. Because as we mentioned in the lecture, that is one of the most important parts of life is sleep. And to me, I think the better sleep we get, the better quality of sleep that we get within that 7 to 9 hours, the better every aspect of health will be beyond that. Because if you look at physical health, sleep is going to improve that. Mental health, sleep is going to improve that. Sleep can improve your nutrition. If you get enough sleep, that affects your hormones that make you hungry and make you feel full. And if you don't get enough sleep, you eat more because the hunger hormone is more prevalent in our body. So I think personally, sleep is the foundation of health, and it should be the base. So the more sleep we get during the day, the bigger our pyramid could be. The next step, I think, is nutrition. So after sleep, I think nutrition is the next most important part of the pyramid of health. Because if you look at nutrition, again, nutrition provides us energy. Nutrition provides us regeneration. Nutrition provides us the building blocks we need to become healthier. So I think nutrition is after sleep in terms of the pyramid. After nutrition, I think it's physical activity. Right? Physical activity is sort of the middle of the pyramid. All right? Again, and we'll talk more about physical activity coming up and really what the differences of physical activity are, because I think there's really two types of physical activity, movement and exercise, and that will make more sense in a few lectures. But if you're getting enough sleep and you're eating properly, you don't need a ton of physical activity. You just need to make sure you're moving throughout the day. All right? It's not saying you can be sedentary, but it just means that 150 minutes of moderate exercise a week would probably be sufficient if you're sleeping enough, you're eating well, and you're moving throughout the day, as well as adding your 150 minutes. But like I said, we'll talk about that. That'll make much more sense. But I think physical activity is right in the middle of that pyramid. It isn't, don't get me wrong, it's important. It is important. To me, like, some people will value exercise more than others, which is fine. Like I said, it's my third. I value sleep and nutrition more than physical activity. And then after physical activity, I have what I call tribe, which could be community or social network. But essentially what it is just the people in your life. The people in your life that help you throughout the day, right? So who's your tribe? That's a question I often ask people when they're trying to improve their health. It's like, okay, who's your tribe? Who are the people in your life that will help you achieve this goal? Because I think having the tribe is important. Having people to help you, to motivate you, to reinforce you on your health journey is extremely important. It's also important to sit down and think about what part of your tribe is valuable and what's not valuable, and maybe even look at cutting people out who aren't valuable. Because there's going to be times when you're like, okay, I need to make a health change. I need to change this part of my life. And someone will literally try to not allow that. They will be negative towards your change, and it could be detrimental to your health success. And it's sad to think, but there is people like that. Whether it's jealousy or misunderstanding, whatever it is, there are going to be people in your life who really are going to try and hold you back. So you need to sit down and think about, who's my tribe? Who are the people who are trying to help? And then the top of the pyramid is mindfulness. And why I have mindfulness on the top of the pyramid is essentially because mindfulness really is part of all of this. Some people could argue that mindfulness should be the base, but I personally think I like it having it at the top, because sleep, nutrition, physical activity, the people you're around is going to help your mental state. All right? So the more sleep you get, the better you eat, the more exercise you do, or the more movement you do, the people surrounding your life, it's going to help your mindset, right? So it should be at the top of the pyramid, because the better sleep, the bigger the base, the better the nutrition, the more mindfulness that you can put in. And really, mindfulness can really control each aspect of this pyramid. So that's my pyramid of health. Those are my 5 real health concepts that I think should be focused on. In this class, we've already talked about sleep. All right, we're going to have a huge component of nutrition coming up in the second half of this course. We're going to be talking about physical activity soon. When you get into other courses in kinesiology, you're going to obviously learn a lot about physical activity. So those 3 aspects we're really going to talk about in this course, and we will touch on mindfulness as well. And then just think about tribe throughout. Who's in your circle? All right? Who's in your circle? Now, when I first put this together, my first question to myself was, all right, the people who believe in the wellness dimension, they're going to question this. What about the other aspects? What about intellectual health? What about occupational, financial, emotional health? What about those aspects? Why aren't they incorporated? All right. Well, I believe they are incorporated, and I'll show you how. So first off, if we look at sleep, the base of the pyramid, sleep incorporates physical health, intellectual health, emotional health, occupational health. Right off the bat there's 4 aspects of the wellness dimensions that sleep plays a role with. So really, the wellness dimension is kind of built into each of these. And you'll see that some of them will obviously overlap. So instead of having this big wheel, put the pyramid and put all the aspects inside the pyramid, right? If you want to really focus on that dimension. So sleep, physical health. Obviously, it improves your physical health. Obviously, it improves your intellectual health. If you read some of that chapter 6 yet, you'll see sleeping can help with skill retention and memory retention. Emotional health. How grumpy are you after you get a bad night's sleep, right? It's proof's in the pudding there. You don't get enough sleep, you're usually short and snappy with people. It affects your emotional health. Occupational health. If you get a right amount of sleep, you're going to be a better employee or a better employer, right? So it's just sleep will play a role. If we look at nutrition, nutrition plays a role in physical health. It plays a role in emotional health. It plays a role in social health. How many people here go visit friends or go have family and food's involved, right? Nutrition is a very, very important part of community and social health. It's also environmental health, and we'll talk about this more when we get into nutrition, but by eating properly, you actually can help the entire environment by reducing waste, right? So nutrition has dimensions of wellness in it as well. Physical activity, physical health, obviously. Spiritual health. Some people feel spiritual when exercising. Physical activity helps with emotional health. It helps with social health if you physically, you go to a yoga class with friends. Intellectual health as well. Physical activity is showing that exercising, just walking every day for 30 to 45 minutes will decrease your risk of Alzheimer's disease. And that's part of intellectual health. So it's increasing brain capacity or brain power. We look at tribe, spiritual health, because again, this is your community, social health, emotional health, intellectual health, financial health, physical health, right? So your community can help you with all aspects of wellness, right? Quite a few aspects of wellness. You can even argue environmental health if you get yourself involved with environmental groups, right? So the tribe can be huge and all. And you know what? I'm sure every one of us can probably argue that each dimension of wellness is important in all 5 of the pyramids of health. And then we get into mindfulness. All aspects of health are part of mindfulness. All right. And what I mean by mindfulness essentially is mental health or psychology, if you will. And mindfulness is really the ability to think and understand and help yourself and others. And I think mindfulness is a very important tool, and it's a very powerful tool. Mindfulness is something that is going to help you succeed on your health journey. Mindfulness is what's going to help you succeed in a physical activity program. Mindfulness is what's going to help you achieve your sleep. Mindfulness is what's going to help you with your tribe. So again, that's why I have it on the top, because I think it's all of them lead to good mindfulness, and mindfulness is kind of the puppet master for all. Now, when it comes to my new thinking of health, another thing we need to think about is the principle of science. Because I put a lot out there that when it comes to science, it can be overwhelming. And it also can be incorrect at times, even though it's science. And it can be confusing. And so that's why I love this quote from Carl Sagan, who is an American astronomer, planetary scientist, cosmologist, astrophysicist, astrobiologist, and a science communicator. So he is the definition of a scientist, if you will, from what I remember what a scientist would be from as a little kid. He had this quote, which I think is a tremendous quote, which is, "Science is not perfect. It's often misused. It's only a tool, but it's the best tool we have. Self-correcting, ever-changing, applicable to everything. With this tool, we vanquish the impossible." All right? So the first word of that we need to know, science is not perfect. It's true. Science is not perfect. We can't predict everything with science. We try, but we can't predict everything with science. Also, we can get one study saying one thing and another study saying the next thing, right? Like nutrition is classic for that. Okay, nutritionists or dietitians, researchers, dietetic researchers will come out with, oh, this food is really good for us, and this food we need to eat more of. And then 20 years later, they'll come up with, oh, that food, actually, no, it's not good for us. It's doing this to our body, right? So we can get all this contradicting evidence. So it's not perfect. And it's misused. There's people who will cherry pick research and will go by that research. One of the most frustrating parts of research for me right now is within nutrition is all the researchers that are coming out that are saying, oh, grapes are really bad for you. They are the ultimate sugar bomb. There's so much sugar and it really spikes your insulin and we should avoid grapes. And that is an example of someone who cherry picked a research article that showed insulin increasing in consumption of grapes. But how can you say something that grows from a tree, grows from our earth, is bad for you? Like, that's the ultimate plant-based food, right? Like, how can any plant-based food be bad for you? That's like saying avocados, actually don't eat avocados because they have saturated fat. Saturated fat's bad for you. Don't eat an avocado. To me, it's like, are you kidding me? Like, we should be eating plants. So it can be misused, and that's where we start seeing this confusion of it being like, well, I'm supposed to eat plant-based diet, but you're telling me plants are bad for me, right? So we need to really be careful when looking at some research. But it is a tool. The method of science, it's a powerful powerful framework when we apply it appropriately. It provides a tool to evaluate information and to objectively prove whether advice or an intervention is actually effective at achieving its intended goal. The tool of science is not perfect. It's simple, it's simply the best we currently have, and there's many flaws that we see today because of it. And we have to realize that it's, it can be appropriate, but it also can be inappropriate for a certain application. And again, it comes down to your personal journey. It comes down to everyone's different. All right? Everyone's different. Everyone is going to react differently. So what I always suggest for people to do, and this is what I'm going to suggest for you to do, especially if as you go through your career here as a kinesiology student and your future endeavors into health professional. What you want to do is apply scientific method to your own health process first, and then staying true to the assesses, the interventions, the reassess process, and that way you can create a system of understanding the body that is flexible, fluid, and under constant scrutiny to ensure we remain current with the best knowledge. And I think the three things that come from that statement that are important, and it really goes with health too, is we need to understand that as health professionals, helping people through health process is by applying it on ourselves and getting a better understanding of it ourselves is going to make us a better health practitioner. And then understanding that our body and our health is flexible and that there's fluidity to health is really going to help us with it. And while we're doing that, we need to make sure we remain current because everything changes. Everything changes. That is why I'm developing this new thinking of health, because in my eyes, I think health has changed. When I started teaching it 15 years ago, I think it was easy to say, do this, you'll be healthier. Now I think it's changed. I think we need to be more fluid, more flexible with our health. We need to be able to change and adapt because as our environment adapts, we have to adapt to it. As our world adapts, we have to adapt to it. As nutrition adapts, we have to adapt to it, right? So flexible and fluid is key. Now, another thing to understand about science is a filter for incoming information. It serves as a way to validate instruments that we can use in the quest for knowledge, as with any tool. But it must be applied appropriately in order to be effective. So does the information abide by the first principle of physiology that we see? That's a question you can ask yourself. So when you see this new information on health, first thing you should ask yourself is, does it abide by the first principle of physiology? Then ask yourself, does it make logical, rational sense? So as stewards of health information, we must do our due diligence to ensure that we share What we share has first been applied on ourselves, and the results have confirmed repeatedly before we share it as our current truth with others. So when we develop our philosophies, try your philosophies on yourself before you start trying it on others. As a strength and conditioning coach, I design programs. I design programs for athletes. I design programs for people who are looking to become healthy. Every single exercise prescription that I give to them, I have tried on myself. So I know if it works, if it works on me, if I get the benefit from this exercise, there's a chance that that person's going to get that benefit as well. And if they're not getting the benefit, then you need to change, right? Because truth is dynamic, right? The truth is dynamic, and being able to understand the truth through yourself is the best way of really understanding the truth. Now, any scientific fact or theory really is true until something proves it wrong or replaces it. So we need to be at our best and really disidentify with concepts, so as not to attach emotion or personal meaning to the information we accept as current truth, but collectively we should strive to challenge our knowledge, which results in either strengthening our position or discovering a better way of doing things. So it's always better to learn than to be right. Okay, we always know that saying, knowledge is power, right? But we need to make sure we apply the knowledge appropriately for it to be powerful. So it's always better to learn than to be right. It's always better to do better. Now, another way of helping people, I think now, is the whole treatment versus prevention. Okay, because right now, modern medicine revolves around diagnosis and treatment. So in this system, people wait until a problem has developed and then they seek medical advice to solve the problem. That is what treatment is. Prevention, on the other hand, focuses on detecting leading indicators and screening for variables that can signal issues before they develop into symptoms. So one thing that I do as a strength coach is I have preventative screens that I apply to athletes before I give them any type of resistance training program. I try to see if there's any indicators that might lead to a problem later on. So to help them avoid to get to the treatment part, I try to prevent that from happening. And prevention truly is the best medicine. And whether it is in your health journey or your physical activity journey, if you can prevent something from taking you to the road of having to go through this diagnosis treatment way of solving a problem, prevention is a better way. So when it comes to health education is all about prevention. Helping people understand the behaviors and lifestyle choices that allow them to avoid common problems and empower the individual with self-screens to detect movement problems before they result in pain and injury, or to help them screen and detect potential harmful aspects of life that they put on themselves to help prevent chronic disease. All right, so simple screens for result in pain and injury for movement, something like a functional movement screen, all right, comes into screens for health, things like, getting regular blood work, taking your blood pressure, testing your heart rate, right? That is preventative screens that you can do. But prevention has lost its focus in conventional medicine. And what we should do as health professionals is bring it back into the spotlight. Make prevention the best medicine. When you look at this palliative care system, what it's doing is putting band-aids over serious injuries and promoting people to cover up pain with quick fixes or drugs. It's not, unfortunately, that's not sustainable in our system. It's really not a sustainable aspect of healthcare. If you look at something like diabetes, now I realize that there's type 1 diabetes, which is a autoimmune disorder, and you are required to have insulin. Like that I get. But in BC alone, 35% of our population, 35% of our population are either pre-diabetic or have type 2 diabetes. Pre-diabetic, type 2 diabetes, that is 100% lifestyle. That is not moving enough and not eating properly. 35% of our province's population is sitting at that. Now, that is one disease. Think about how much money those people will need from our healthcare system for their drugs to help them. All right? 35% of our population. That is a lot of money. All right? And that's just one disease. One disease. So what prevention is really the root cause approach. It's what we need to target. We need to target the root cause of what all these preventable issues are happening. What is the root cause of it? And regardless of how hard it is, the only viable plan is done through simple, applicable education. There's no magic system. There's no magic technique. There's no drugs. Humans are actually not designed to break down. Our parts are supposed to last for 100 years. We just need to understand how to use them properly and how to maintain them so they can hold up over time. So health versus medicine. Put it simply, health is the absence of disease, and medicine is the diagnosis and treatment of disease. A healthy person does not require medicine, and so health and medicine seem to be inherently in conflict. If you work in medicine, the incentive is to treat problems but not eliminate them, and this is a major flaw in our current system. Health comes from seeking to reclaim responsibility over your mental and physical domains and working daily to improve. Health isn't a state. Health is a process. And when people change their mindset to one that is improving instead of being free of problems, it can be a powerful shift for healing. So when it comes to health, that's what we need to look at. We need that mindset of it being, like I said, ever changing. We need to have a mindset of we want to improve our health throughout our life cycle, right? We don't want to just be free of problems. We just don't want absence of disease. We want to be constantly improving. And we want the power to do that ourselves. And that's what we need to start looking at as health professionals, is how are we going to empower the person? How are we going to empower people to realize that they have the ability to do this and they can do it? It's just a matter of understanding. Now, pain. Pain is interesting. Because if you look at pain, pain is a signal from our body that something isn't right. I'm sure every single one of us has some sort of pain in our life, whether it's physical or emotional. But pain is our body telling us that something isn't right. Now, really, it's a call for change. And what it's a call for change for is our mechanics. What's happening? What's actually going on? What's the perceived damage? And it must be listened to, because really pain can be an intelligent teacher. Pain is telling you something's up. Now, largely due to conventional medicine, pain is poorly understood by most people. And because of that, modern humans have a very strange relationship with pain. They think pain is a bad thing. So, what they do is they see it as a hassle or something to be hidden or killed. But pain is like a fire alarm going off in your home. It's a signal that something is wrong. Instead of simply removing the batteries from the alarm or plugging your ears, which would be what pain meds are, you should probably put out the fire. And that theory applies to the human body. If you have some chronic pain or any pain, acute pain, it's telling you something's up. What you need to do is find the root cause of what's causing the pain. And as you get to know the human body through kinesiology, you will understand that the body is really linked. A pain in your shoulder could be due to something wrong in your back. A pain in your ankle could be something that's wrong with your hip. All right? So often when we feel pain, it's just our body signaling us that something's up and we need to look at it. And having a better relationship with pain will help our health. Because if we realize pain isn't just something that's a hassle, that's something that's bad, that we should just cover it up. It's something that is trying to guide us to be better. And that's what we should really look at pain as a guide to become better, a guide to be healthier. And it's your job to understand what the pain is, where it's coming from, how you're going to help the person. Now, in saying that, the human body is complex. It's a very complex system. If you've taken anatomy and physiology, you probably realize that. And one thing we need to understand is when we're working with complex adaptive systems like the human body, we need to think and decipher the solution to a problem and understand that there's more variables and complexities that need to be uncovered. So you can view this complexity as either a burden and a problem to be solved, or you can view it as a beautiful, mystical, and amazing structure that provides perceptual canvas for learning. Now, there's something called reductionists, and reductionist thinking is to break the human body down into individual systems or parts. But really, this has done very little to help us understand how to fix problems. Yes, when we learn the human body, breaking it down into individual systems is a great way to start to learn. But we need to realize that it's a larger system. And by reducing it into a collection of smaller parts and analyzing them separately, it has its merits. But any conclusions must be interpreted from knowing the body and understanding that simply the sum of its parts and how the parts interact are much harder to study than just individual components. So yes, we need to know the individual components of the human body, but we have to understand that it's a complex system. And we must always be skeptical of absolute statements when it comes to health and remain dynamic in our thinking, especially on the topic of health or movement. More data doesn't always lead to better understanding, and looking too closely at the details can cause you to miss the big picture. In the age of conditions like chronic pain, diabetes, and depression, we must move away from the reductionist thinking and appreciate that context and interaction between systems play a big part in the conversation. So it's always interesting to me when someone comes to me and they have some sort of muscle pain. And they say, look, I have this pain in my shoulder. The first thing I do is I don't just look at the shoulder. I look at the entire body. I do an entire body screen to see where the unlink is. And when it comes to movement, we need to think more than just the muscles. We need to think the joints. We need to think the circulation. We need to think the immune system, because it's not just the muscle that's sore. It's several different systems that are impacting that soreness. And I think a lot of the times we think if you have a cardiovascular problem, you just focus on the cardiovascular system. But there's more to it. Okay, body is complex. The human body is a complex system. And yes, we do need to understand each individual system. And that's why we break them down in anatomy and physiology. But when you get into the higher level classes and you get into the strength and conditioning class, or you get into physiotherapy, you need to start thinking about how each of these systems interact with one another, how they interact with one another. And I think that's so important for the physical health of everything. All right. And I think that will help you understand health a little bit more as well. We also need to understand that there's psychology of health. So psychology of health is, if we take this, most people know that they need what they need to do in order to be healthy, right? Eat real food, move more, improve their sleep. So my question is this: if so many people know what needs to be done, why do they continually fail to do it? It's safe to assume that everyone wants to be healthier, everyone wants to be happy, everyone wants to be pain-free. So what are the barriers to our progress? And that's when we enter psychological health. The internal struggle everyone goes through in order to achieve change. Change is scary, and it's the beginning of a journey. And we need to make sure that if we improve our health, we can do it. We don't want it to be intimidating, but it is for so many people that are going into it, especially if they go into it alone. So knowing the change that you need to make and successfully achieving those changes sometimes create a fear response that prevents actions. And that's the psychology of health. So what's the solution? Well, we can provide support and guidance to help people start with small changes. That's what I find is one of the most empowering aspects for people to learn change, is start small. Make them understand that small steps can accumulate to large changes. And I think that's really a new part, an important part of my new thinking to health, is small changes. Don't try and overwhelm them by saying, oh, you need to improve your diet, then you need to change your entire diet starting now. They will not be successful. If you want them to improve their diet, take a look at what they're eating and suggest some simple changes to start. Let me give you this one example. Now, I don't know how many people listening or how many of you drink milk. Personally, I don't, and I'm not saying dairy's bad or anything like that. I just don't drink it. My question is, and this is just a real simple change, and if you don't drink milk, then that's fine. If you do, then what type of milk are you drinking? All right, what type of milk are you drinking? If you're drinking 2% milk, I'm not saying that that's bad. I don't want you to be like, oh my God, I drink 2% milk. What's wrong with me? This is just an example of what small changes can make. If you drink 2% milk and you change to skim milk, and I understand as a 2% drink milker, or as someone who drinks 2% milk, that's probably a disgusting thought. But if you switch to 2% and you switch to skim, right, and you were drinking one cup of 2% milk a day, let's say. You switch to skim milk. Simple change. Simple change. It's just going from 2% milk to skim milk. That simple change compounded over a year would result in 10 pounds of calories being taken out of your diet when it calculates. So see, small steps can accumulate to large changes. And that's what we need to do with health. We need to make people understand that, making big changes is really hard and very overwhelming. So instead of making big, huge changes, let's make smaller ones to start. All right, make smaller ones to start. That way, it's not so overwhelming. And then what's happening is, if we want to undertake the task of creating a new self-prioritizing certain parts of our life, just, making tiny steps a day. And that will help us continually learn about health and continually become better. And it's easier to overcome psychological barriers when we're just trying to make small steps. And then one thing you need to help people understand is the first step is a big step. It's a step in the right direction. It's probably more than they've done before. Right? It's probably more than they've done before. So the psychology of health is huge, because psychology health is what really determines if people fails or succeeds, right? It's the mindfulness that I talked about. This chart I have up here is called the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it's a theory a theory in psychology that was proposed by Abraham Maslow, and it's quite often used with human motivation. So what essentially he created here with this was the developmental psychology part. And really it describes the stages of growth in humans. He created this classification system to really reflect the universal needs of society as it's based and then proceeds with certain emotions. So the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is really used to study how humans intrinsically partake in behavioral motivation. And when it comes to behavioral change in health, behavioral motivations is important. And essentially what the Maslow's hierarchy of needs just is what we need in our life in order to feel, good about ourselves. And you can see physiological needs are the base: air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction, right? The things that make life. And then it moves up into what are some safety needs, and then love and belonging, building self-esteem, and then going into self-actualization, right? So desire to become the most that one can be. And really, if we want to make successful change, following this hierarchy of needs is really a good way of looking at how to make a change. Because what you want to accomplish is you want someone to have that desire to become the most that they can be, especially in health, right? And the small steps, the small changes it's going to be the most successful. So when it comes to health, we need to redefine health. All right, we need a different definition of health. So common culture seems to think that being healthy means obtaining a state of perfect health, but we need to view health as a lifelong process. Really, the definition of obtaining perfect health is really doesn't seem to apply in my eyes to health anymore. And we need to understand that everyone can be healthy. And in fact, being healthy has much more to do with your mindset than your physical state of your body. So redefining what it means to be a healthy person can give hope to others that being healthy is within their grasp. And the language can help provide clarity in terms of values and story that people must internalize in order to make sustainable progress on their health journey. So when it comes to health, what does being a healthy person mean? What does it mean to be a healthy person? Well, I think it means having the confidence that you are in control of your health. I think that's a huge part of health, is understanding that you control it. No one else. You're under control. Making progress every day towards your health goals. That's one thing that everyone should try and do. If it's a journey and it needs to be a process and it needs to be every single day. We need to make sure we're actively learning what we can do to improve. We need to make sure we're making plans, we're implementing changes as well towards our health. We're acting on our plans, right? So it's one thing to just say we're going to do this. It's another thing to behave that way. So we need to make sure we're acting on our plans to change our behaviors. We want to make sure we're helping others improve with awareness as well as health confidence. And be a leader by being the example through your actions. Others will follow. And understand that you don't have to change every single person. If you can just help a few people, just think about our class. 32 people in this class. If each of you can change 10 lives and help 10 people become healthier, that's over 300 people we've helped. And then maybe those 300 people will help 5 people each. And then the numbers keep growing. So as much as it's, as I said, it's simple. And that's why I wanted to develop this. Simplify things. Understand that if you help one person, that's fantastic. It's one more person in the world that's healthier. And what I would like everyone to try to accomplish as a health professional is make it that goal. Just try and change someone. Make people understand how important healthy is. We need to make sure that we place an emphasis on process and progress and not perfection. We want to make sure that the mindset and not the physical state is included. All right? It's not just physical, it's the mindfulness. All right? We want to make sure that people understand that someone can be injured, overweight, stressed, but still be healthy. Because you know what? There could be someone who's physically fit, pain-free, but unhealthy. Okay? It's your forward motion. It's not your current state. I think that's a huge part. And really think about that. Health is what you're doing now and what you're going to do moving forward versus what your current state is. Because everyone has a starting point. Everyone has a starting point. And your goal is to be able to evolve past that starting point. So let's call ourselves a tribe of health professionals. We need to refine the definition of what it means to be a healthy person. And we need to spread the message that being healthy is with anyone's grasp if they are willing to change. And to help people improve their health confidence by empowering them with the awareness and tools needed to succeed on their health journey. If we can do that, we will create a new future for health. We will engineer a new language and meaning, which then provides a template for people to write a new story for themselves and for others. That's why I created the New Thinking of Health, and that's why I wanted to share it with you today. If you have any questions on this, any comments, feel free to email me. You can post on the discussion board, New Thinking of Health, as well. I appreciate you listening today. I hope that you find this lecture, out of any lecture that I give, useful and helpful. Because I think this lecture here is going to be an important one. And it's why I wanted to share it with you, because I think we need to help others. We need to make people understand that health is important and health is achievable for all. And as future health professionals, I want you to find your philosophy through your journey. Everyone's journey is going to be different. Everyone's philosophy is going to be different. Find your philosophy, find your journey, and help people. Thank you, everybody.